Welcome to the Grit City Podcast. I am Justin.
I'm Scott.
Hey, Jeff, you want to say something?
I am Jeff.
Yeah, and we are all here today. Brogan is not. He's actually dealing with nerd stuff.
Yeah.
Go see him at wizardskeepgames.com.
He's tournamenting nerds right now.
Tournamenting? Is that a word?
It is now. I just made it up.
That is not a word.
Whatever.
Yeah, okay, sure. If you guys want to get a hold of us, info@gritcitypodcast.com, and there's a whole bunch of different emails at gritcitypodcast.com. People can just link to them.
Oh, man.
It's going to be an interesting day. We do have a couple of guests with us today. Ladies, please introduce yourselves.
Okay, who goes first? I guess I'll go first because I'm oldest. My name is Louisa Beal, and I'm Executive Director of Radio Tacoma, which sounds very fancy.
Yeah.
That means she does all the work.
Actually not. Actually, I think, Pam, you do all the work. Would you introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Louisa's younger sister.
So Pam...
And?
Yeah, what do you do with Radio Tacoma?
I do anything Louisa tells me.
Oh, that's the perfect way.
That's because she's secretary.
I am the secretary, yes. And early on, we met with a person who was an expert in fundraising, this nice guy. And he said, if you're going to fundraise, this is what you do. You go to people who love you, respect you, and owe you.
There you go.
And these are all the things that I do this because I love her, I respect her, and I owe her big time.
So all I had to do was ask, Pam,
Yeah.
please, would you be secretary?
And you guys are a part of Radio Tacoma, and you have your own low wattage station that goes out in Tacoma. Now, it's on 2 bands, correct?
2 bands, no. I don't think so.
We have a second station now, that's, I think, what he means.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the 2
okay.
stations,
Oh,
yeah.
So there's KTAH
Mhm.
and then KTQA.
And so if you're in the Tacoma area, you can find it at 101.9 and 95.3.
That's true.
Nice. So how? How did you get
Yeah.
involved with it? This is so interesting. I really love the fact because Scott and I found you because you were giving out, you're doing a little seminar, a little get-together about how to interview, which is kind of funny now that you guys did that and now you're interviewing you. Yeah, so don't judge us too harshly.
It was actually really, really good. I thought it was
that's good to
fantastic. I took tons of notes. I know he did too.
Mhm,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, it was a really good one.
So how did this all come to be? How did you want to make and create a radio station?
Okay, well, let's see. 2013, the FCC opened up bandwidth for low-power FM stations to kind of squeeze between the digital dial.
Mm-hmm.
And a woman who was in a group that I was in, if that makes sense,
Okay.
she had heard about this on the radio and said, hey, this is happening. Anybody interested? And I just happened to be in my manic phase where I say yes to everything.
Nice.
And so with her and I, we started collecting some people. We first met with maybe 8 people who were interested. Of those 8, she and I are the ones that are left.
Okay. Yeah.
But in that time, we have gotten on board several other people. Early on, Marilyn Kimmerling came on board, and she is a powerhouse. She knows everybody.
Nice. It's always good to know those. For us, it's the guy who isn't here actually, Brogan. Yeah, and it's just he's the one that seriously just will go out and he's the charmer. He'll talk to everybody.
Yes.
And you need that in your team.
Really do. So the 3 of us, started. There were other people who had come on board who have since moved away or were told by their wife that they couldn't do it anymore. And basically, the 3 of us who had this great idea knew absolutely nothing about radio. We did not know anything about what we were getting into. And we just went, okay, well, here's the application. Let's go through the whole thing. And it turned out that as coming together as Radio Tacoma, we did not have the 501c3 nonprofit status.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there were a couple other things we didn't have, and so we needed to find a partner. We needed to find a 501c3 that had been in existence, that had an educational part of their mission.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so we found the Bridge Methodist Church. And they're a very progressive church. Our missions kind of dovetail. And so,
Oh, nice.
I never thought I would be hooking up with a church. But it's worked out. It's worked out well. And so we had an engineer from Portland, the only one we could find. I've actually never met him, but he's the one that helped us fill out the FCC application.
And I mean, these are government applications, so
Oh,
they
my.
cannot be easy whatsoever.
I didn't even understand the language. It's like he'd say, "Do this," and I'd say, "Okay."
Well, at that point, again, it's good to know a person.
Right,
because-
and
It
radio
is.
too. Like radio is so regulated. And you guys, I imagine you jump through all kinds of crazy hoops to get that going, right?
Yeah, and actually, it was Gray Heretick from Portland who was the one who helped us get through those hoops. And there was one point in our application where it was denied because of an interference with a Seattle station or something. Again, something I don't understand, but we got this notice that we were denied, and we're like, "Oh my dear, Gray, help!"
Find us a new signal,
And,
anything.
yeah, and he had been in this radio stuff so long. He knew the people at the FCC. So he emailed them.
Oh,
And he says,
nice.
you don't understand about Puget Sound. There's all this water. So there's no one out there listening.
That's a good point. I mean, that's a really good point. If you're dealing with any of those sort of things, it's knowing someone that it's like not even just like knowing a person, but the technical aspects to be able to help that out. That is so awesome. You're able to
Yeah.
find someone.
Yeah. Well, it took a while. And again, we looked locally. We thought, okay, well, we're a local station. We want to have local community. Let's look for somebody local. And it was like silence. Nothing. There were two people in Portland. One who was so busy with other LPFM stations because there were a lot of stations coming on.
I guess
At
that
that
makes
point.
sense. I mean, it's another version of public access, and I mean that's even kind of where you guys go with
Yeah.
with what you're creating here because you want it to be about Tacoma and community.
Right. But it was a short window that the FCC had opened up, maybe 9 months or something.
wow.
Oh, yeah. And so there's 6, 8 stations in Seattle that have come on. There's a station on Vashon. There's a bunch of them, okay? And so at this time, all of the people who knew anything about the FCC regulations and the applications and the standards, and they were working overtime. So we were very fortunate to get Gray from Portland.
That is awesome. And if people want to find out more information, they can go to radiotacoma.org. But you're also on Facebook with just Radio Tacoma 253, and even just Radio Tacoma on Twitter. So you've got a social media presence everywhere.
We have a social media director.
Oh,
That is
nice!
why. Yes, that's the only reason. Because
Louisa's not even on Facebook. so.
yeah, I don't even have one of those.
I wish I could not be on Facebook. It's one of those at this point. Unfortunately, a lot of the times it seems to be a necessary evil depending on what you do. But if you can kind of step away from that, like my wife has been able to, just delete it from her phone so she doesn't look at it all the time.
Well, see, that was easy for me because I don't have a phone.
Perfect. You don't have a phone either?
Well, I do, but it's off and it lives in my car.
Oh. So, I guess radio is kind of just where the technology goes for you at that point.
That's my focus.
Interesting.
And email.
Yeah, that's true. I do a lot of email. I don't answer the phone. I have a landline.
It's
So.
not a total Luddite.
So tell us a little bit about. I noticed on the website that you guys are doing a lot of fun events. And Scott, how did you find out about the event? Because you're the one who told me about it.
I don't remember.
We
Honestly,
need to know that.
I know, right? I'm trying to think.
I think I saw it on Twitter. I want to say I saw it on Twitter. Someone had retweeted it. It was, I guess I made a flyer of some sort up for it. And I think I saw it on Twitter. And I was like, oh, this will be cool. Let's go to this. And we were like dorks. We sat outside, like two grown men in his car. Just sitting there, like, we didn't want to go in. We're like, oh, man. Are we really going to go in? But we did. It was awesome. It was
Yeah.
super cool.
It's always one of those things where it's like, I don't want to be the only person there. And there was a great big group of people there.
Yeah.
It's like you've been able to cultivate a small community so far.
Yes, amazingly so. Because again, our outreach has been hampered by all of the other things that we need to do. As far as, we don't have a studio. We're trying to, get equipment. We're doing Audacity trainings. We're doing a lot of internal work. We're working on the website. We're trying to get all of our programming process in place. There's all these things that have to happen.
it just started with you saying, I want to have a radio station, and then now everything is just like showing up. So if people wanted to donate, they could do so going right to radiotacoma.org then.
Yes, on the website.
And so you're doing so when we went to the interview community, the interview gathering, are you guys doing this with frequency, and is it sort of we're just taking what we're looking up so we could learn and just passing it on? How are you going about with this?
It was a piggyback off of the Audacity trainings that
Okay.
we were doing, which were funded by the Tacoma grant called the Innovative Grant.
Oh, yeah. I was just talking about those at our monthly neighborhood meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Neighborhood watch meeting.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes, and the councils in Tacoma fund projects.
Mm-hmm.
The New Tacoma Council and Central Tacoma Councils funded us to do Audacity training.
Oh, neat.
And we also wanted to include some training in interviewing. We couldn't do that all on the Saturdays that we had aligned for Audacity, so we did it at a separate time.
Well, and some people don't actually even know what Audacity is. So
Yeah.
I know you guys are
I'm
kinda
glad you asked that question.
Audacity means to be very brave and bold.
That's I
I'm
love
an English professor.
Oh, really? What do you teach?
Tacoma Community College.
Fantastic.
Really?
Yeah.
OTCC.
TCC.
Man.
So Audacity is an open source software that can be used to edit audio productions.
And you guys teach people. You guys help people learn how to do that.
We hired a trainer to do
Ooh,
it,
nice.
Sam Mulvey, who is also helping us with engineering of the station. But Louisa is also capable of doing this training now. And whenever I have a program to edit, I just take it over to Louisa and watch her.
Super
I'm
cool.
learning by watching.
Yeah.
All this editing.
So when we started, that's what I used to edit. Everything was Audacity, and I love it. I think it's fantastic. He doesn't use it.
Yeah, I use Audition.
Oh, okay.
I spend the $20 a month to use it because I do some other side things, editing other people's podcasts and stuff like that. And so it's just the one that I've used all my life. But like Audacity, it's helpful because it's free, right?
It is 100%
Yeah.
free.
And-
That's why we use it.
And that's one of those things that is really great because there are a lot of things out there that you can kind of dime store just to get started.
Absolutely.
And it's, I mean, like seriously, like Amazon, you can get a $20 mic and a recorder for fairly inexpensive if you just want to go that way.
See, and I always tell people that they have their phone. I'm like, man, you have your phone. You can record right off your phone.
It's
store it
true.
on Audacity.
I mean, yeah,
There you
seriously, these are like $700 personal computers right here, and
Yep.
they have all the peripherals to do that sort of stuff. So it's really fun to be able to get into that. And I mean, you guys have been doing this for a year now. So first off, congratulations.
Thank you.
It sounds like it's been kind of a hectic year, but
It's been, well, even before. Once we got the antenna up, I started breathing again.
Okay. So I saw this on the Grit City magazine.
Yeah.
Your antenna is up a tree.
It is up a tree.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about how this goes about to be as well, because it's an interesting story.
I don't know, interesting, frustrating maybe.
Well, it just shows the amount of work and again the hoops you got to jump
Well,
through in order to make this happen.
It shows the ingenuity, actually.
Agreed.
Because if we had to go the route that was recommended, which was to build a tower,
Mm-hmm.
we wouldn't be here today on the radio station. We couldn't have made the deadline.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
so it's not something, even if we could have gotten the funding to build the tower, the deadlines, we had, 6 months to get this thing up? And it took 4 months to get approval.
Oh wow.
And we weren't even to the point where we could even put the application in because I couldn't get any straight answers on what, photos they needed and all the other things that the permit required.
Dang.
And I even went to a public forum from the planning department on permitting, and it was for private citizens about well, the house and how do I
Mhm.
permit a fence or I don't know whatever. And so I went with all this information that I had with my questions, and I had questions about there was something about if you got camouflage, then you wouldn't have to do something else, and then you wouldn't have to do the EPA, and I mean all these other things. And so I
Oh,
had
wow.
questions that they couldn't answer.
I was
It was
going to say, I bet they loved you, right? And you're like, I want to put in this antenna. And they're like, oh, no.
It
not
was so
antenna
funny
lady.
because I started talking to this one woman at the table, okay, and she was going, oh, well, let me see. And she goes, John, could you come over here for a minute? And he
I've
comes
never
over.
heard of this before.
And he comes over, right? Yeah, and trying to do, and I'm trying to fill out this permit. And so, what about question 2B? And he goes, I don't know, just a second. Matt.
No one's ever checked yes on that box.
And pretty soon, I have six
That's great.
people standing around me trying to answer these questions. And I finally just go, what if I just put the antenna in a tree? And they
Just
look at each other.
Almost exasperated
And
at
they
that point.
look at each other. Oh, no, I think they were relieved.
Oh. Oh, she found her own solution. Yes, you can do that.
And they said,
That's great.
well, okay. I mean, it wasn't an official okay, but, they just kind of started, turning their heads and go,
That's fantastic.
I can't hear you.
Yeah,
You know,
right?
Yeah.
That
So
was
it's not,
that was in May,
yeah,
Wow.
and the antenna went up mid-July.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I guess it did.
It did.
Yeah, because actually, initially we had June as a deadline.
But the formal deadline from the FCC was, I think,
November.
November for us to be on air.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you guys beat that by a ways then.
Not really.
No.
Application, because
Oh.
once you get an antenna up, this happened in mid-July, then you have to get on the air, and you need an engineer, you need a lot of
Mhm.
equipment.
Yeah.
So the next little meeting we held down in town at one of the members has a building downtown, 734 Pacific Avenue. 733 Arts is her organization.
Mm-hmm.
We held a meeting down there, just a kind of general meeting. This guy shows up, and he seems to know what he's talking about, and he's very knowledgeable about engineering. And I remember looking at him and said, "Do you want to be on our board?"
And what's your name?
And he said, "Sure." And the other board members looked at me like, this is not exactly a process. But we had no process. So Sam and his wife Becky joined us, and they helped tremendously, getting us on the air by mid-October.
Wow.
But see, then there's another glitch. This is when Todd emailed from California. Were you in on any of that?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
The second station, you mean?
Yeah. This guy from California I forget the organization, but it's some, community radio organization.
Oh, wow, okay.
So he was in on a lot of different things, and he emails, he says, there's a construction permit in Tacoma that's about to expire. Can you help save it? And it was like, well, okay, I'll try, and this was September, I think.
Okay.
And it turned out that the people who owned the construction permit had just given up. They just didn't care. And Todd had met one of those people down in Southern California. And so that guy says, yeah, it's okay with me. And so it's like, okay, so now all we have to do is to take over the organization from the Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have to get people on the board there. Then we have to get a transmitter and emergency alert system
Oh,
And an
gosh.
antenna.
and an antenna, and then find a place to put it. So that's, we had 9 days to do this.
Wow.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
remember I wasn't on that email.
Yeah.
I remember when the email went out. She got all sorts of replies from the other board members. No, this is impossible.
Yeah, 9 days.
What are you thinking? And she just plowed ahead.
Can
It's like,
do
well, I want-
attitude. I think like with
I want
all
to.
of this, at all of this, I want to do this. So it's one of those things that's just a testament to seriously the Tacoma gung ho ability to just be like,
Yeah.
we're doing this.
Yeah.
Well, it's more like, if we don't even try, then we're not going to do it. But if we can try, we just go to a place until we stop. And we stopped at KTQA.
So you started out to start one radio station. You ended up with 2. That's pretty awesome.
Well, yes and no. I mean, they're separate.
Right. But
Separate boards and everything like that.
Oh, really?
Oh, we
Yes.
have to have separate
Oh,
boards.
okay. I guess that makes sense. You've got those. And so, do they cover essentially the same area, or what are the different areas that each of them cover? Because I know it was a little hard on the east side for me to tune into the 101.9,
Mhm.
so I wasn't sure if maybe the other one would be better
Yeah.
on that end.
Okay, because the antenna for 101.9
Mhm.
KTAH is over by the Tacoma Mall. And so on the
Okay.
east side, it drops down over that cliff.
I know, and that's the weird thing is that sometimes you don't take into account the terrain, and especially with the mountainous and valley terrain that we have, sometimes you will be down in an area, and I found this out because the first place that I lived in Tacoma was right by the EQC off of Portland Avenue, right down there, and it's in that valley, and I could never get television signal with my little antenna, and just plug it into the back of the cable, the digital thing, wouldn't work, and I'm like, oh yeah, terrain.
And that's what Gray Hartrick from Portland was telling us. He's, because we were saying, well, where should we put the antenna? Where should we put the antenna? And he was saying, there's no place to put the antenna. There's no good place in Tacoma. Because it's up and down and up and down and up and down.
It ended up next to the Friends Meeting House on the hill behind the Tacoma Mall.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
above Chick-fil-A now. It used to be bookstore.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of the highest points in Tacoma. So it's really the best place that could be.
And the other one?
The other one is located at about 27th and J, and Sam lives around there. Sam and Becky live around there, and he saw that antenna and went and talked to the owner, and the owner said, sure.
Really?
It was an antenna he used for another purpose a long time ago. It hadn't been used for anything, so
Interesting.
June-
It's still up there. You just used it. Cool.
Yeah,
They
you had to
had
be
us-
a radio guy of some
Yeah.
sort, right?
He
Yeah,
was.
ham
He
guy or
originally used
something.
it for
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like that,
that's
yeah.
cool though.
But Sam, the KTQA had its temporary antenna in somebody's house, and then now they have the antenna. Somebody climbed the tower in June, another member of ours, and put up the antenna
Wow.
for KTQA on that. And that's a good location. And it does, I think, get down all around the tide flats, all around downtown.
Nice.
101.9 FM doesn't really reach downtown as well.
Mm-hmm.
We reach into North Tacoma, South Tacoma very well.
Yeah, over into University Place
Yeah.
areas.
That's where I grew up at. UP.
Do you guys
Oh,
ever?
Yeah.
Do you guys drive around and see where you reach just for fun every so often?
Not anymore.
But you did.
Yes.
Well, it hasn't been that long, a year. So.
A year of driving, yeah.
Now, moving on, talking about the programming. Tell us a little bit about the people that you have so far on the programming of the station, and who you've had on previously as well.
Well, we have limited programming currently, but we have a regular series called Ask an Atheist.
Oh, fun! Yeah, I've seen those on like the Best of Western Washington. They're usually on the list of the top podcasts.
Oh, okay. Yes, Sam and Becky.
This
Oh,
is-
okay,
this is-
fun. Might have to have them on there
Yeah,
too.
that
might be
Yeah,
definitely.
And then they have some friends who do another podcast. They use Sam's studio in his house, both Sam.
Ooh, he's got a studio and
I
he's an
know.
engineer. I know this. I want
Yes,
to
we
live
have
now.
used it occasionally.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very
fun.
nice. And theirs is called Hands Free Football, about soccer.
Oh, yeah,
They're
that makes sense.
one of the most prolific podcasters is Lucas Barfield. He does our section Cannabis Corner,
Oh, nice.
Wow.
and
And
then
I have learned so much from Lucas. This is wonderful.
he knows a lot.
Yep.
He's used medical cannabis for a long time, and he's aware of the laws not only in Washington State but all over the country.
Well, and I think you just like when you're dealing with that, because we'll have Billy from Mary Martin, and we'll have some people that are in with the cannabis industry. We had the guy from Fairwinds in recently, and it's that you need to know, yeah, exactly, not only like your laws to wherever you're at, but just everywhere, because you just never know. And it's one of those things to be knowledgeable, and it makes the most sense because then you can also compare laws and say, hey, well, they're doing this here, why can't we do that there? If you're into maybe potentially trying to change the laws around here or having to suit your own needs.
Yeah, and Lucas has this nice Alabama drawl.
Oh, really?
Where
Okay,
he's
I want to listen
from.
to this. I want to listen to this.
Oh, he's lovely to listen to.
He is lovely to listen to, and he knows all about what's going on in Alabama. Jeff said.
Now, so if people wanted, so you have limited programming now.
There is one other program.
Oh, yeah, please.
Actually, there are two.
Keep
The
going.
first one I want to talk about is Radio Tacoma interviews,
Mm-hmm.
and those change most frequently.
Okay.
We have done interviews with the Tacoma Refugee Choir.
What is that?
The Tacoma Refugee Choir started right after the election of Trump.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean,
And
that
with
makes
all of
sense.
the threats made to refugees and immigrants that he made, and they started a choir that started by Aaron Gwinnett.
Okay.
They're also on Facebook, and they have a website too. They do a lot of concerts around the area. People who are refugees and those of us who are sympathetic to
Mhm.
the cause
Absolutely.
are part of the concerts, and often the concerts are sing-alongs.
Oh, fun.
Or
Get
partly
everybody
anyway.
Invited?
Yeah, that's not the word I was going for.
Oh,
but-
you started with INV. So
Involved. Man.
Involved.
Get everybody involved at the
Yes.
sing-along. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
That's where I was
And they
going.
had some very
My brain just
well-known,
quit working.
very well-known people work with them too. I don't remember the names of the artists that have worked with them. I interviewed Aaron. There've been political interviews
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
different political candidates.
One that I did, and this wasn't a candidate, but it was Adam Smith and Denny Heck. I interviewed them
Oh,
each.
give him
okay.
heck.
Yeah, give them heck. Yeah.
When I was living in Seattle, I saw his first things, and I was like, I like him just for his slogan. I looked up his other stuff, and it was along the lines, but now he's actually my district candidate or my district
Mhm.
representative, and it was like, oh, fun, cool, yeah, I get to vote for him.
And he is eminently, oh gosh, see, I lost the word too,
Dang it.
approachable. He
Ah.
is very approachable. And I've met with him several times, and he's always been just very gracious. And so I did a piece on Adam Smith's bill to make it U.S. policy not to use nuclear weapons first.
That's a pretty good call on that.
I thought so.
Yeah.
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 So that was fun.
Yeah.
Then I did an interview with the Slater Museum, which a lot of people don't know about.
I don't know anything about
No.
this.
It's at the University of Puget Sound, and it's a natural history museum.
Really?
Yeah. It's
Anyone can go to it?
You
Like
bet.
museum?
Yep, yep. Go on their
Wow.
website. They've got office hours, and once a month they have night at the museum.
Oh, I would do Night at the Museum. Too.
it's
Yeah,
so
right?
cool. Yeah. So those are the kinds of things that we've been doing.
Yeah, Louisa interviewed Steve Fossen of Heart.
Oh, that's right. That was so much fun.
How did you come across that?
Yeah. Well, they got in touch with us.
Fun.
Steve Fossen has created another band with Mike DeRosier, who was the original drummer
Mm-hmm.
for Heart, and they have a group called Heart by Heart.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so his wife is now the singer, and so they go around, and they were playing in Puyallup.
Oh,
Wow.
And
perfect.
so they contacted me for an announcement and stuff like that, and said, "Can you interview?" And it's like, I reached out to everybody on our board and said, "Anybody want to do this?" And I got crickets back, and so I thought, well, okay,
There you go.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that
do
was
it.
that was a lot of fun.
I'm just going to check out one more interview.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, please.
One that I did. With a
Yeah.
friend, I went to Wilson High School,
Mhm.
and my friend Kurt Mitchell also went to Wilson. He was a quadriplegic then, and he's a quadriplegic now, but he used to draw with his mouth
Really?
the Ram cartoons.
Oh,
Super
okay.
Ram cartoons. Anyway.
That's cute.
And he'd draw pictures of my friends and I. I remembered I kept one of them for a long time. And then I got back in touch with him on Facebook and asked if he asked what he was doing. He's writing a book about the 40s era
Oh, wow.
comics under the auspices not of Stan Lee but Stan Lee's partner, and I don't
Jack
know.
Kirby?
Could be.
Maybe that's
Wow.
his most notable
You
one.
threw
Yes.
that out fast,
Hey,
nerd.
hey,
Yeah.
first off. There's no first off. You're right.
Jack Kirby? Was it Jack Kirby? I thought it was Jack Kirby.
Shut up, Scott.
Well, there's a series by decade on American comics,
Mhm.
and Kurt was tasked with doing the 40s, which is a very interesting period because if you remember Captain America, which he said was quite true to the comic, the film,
Mm-hmm.
it's about fighting the Nazis.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
And the people who owned most of the comic book businesses were Jewish. So
Oh,
they
yeah.
were very aware of what was going on, and they wanted people to know.
Well, and that was the first the first issue. Here we go with my nerd.
No, that's all right, man. I love comic books.
The first issue of Captain America #1 on the cover was him punching Hitler.
Yep.
Like, and they knew this was going to be the things. And I don't even think the U.S. was involved in the war at this point either. But it was them making their statement to the American people, like, this is not a cool thing. Maybe we should, punch Hitler.
So I interviewed Kurt, and I'll go back. Now his book is done, but it hasn't been published yet. Once it's published, I'll go back and do a second interview.
That is fun.
That is really cool. And that's one of my favorite things about podcasting. Sorry, man.
Okay, do it, man.
Because I never got to do anything like this, right? We started this in 2014, and just the people I've got to meet and talk to and get to know, it's just been fabulous. So
That's the one thing that looking at. I mean, we get some downloads, and it's fun that the fact that we get some people who actually want to listen to us. But it's also just it's a fun excuse that, hey, we have a podcast. Would you like to come and talk on it and talk about your stuff? Because we're trying to meet people that are in Tacoma and the surrounding areas, but most of the time Tacoma, because I grew up, like I said, in University Place, and I want people to understand how cool Tacoma is. And I mean, I grew up mostly in the 80s and the 90s, where people, and I always say this, but wouldn't go to Wright Park because it was not a safe place. And now they're having the food truck events, and they're having all of these fun things, and it's a really beautiful park. And even as we were going to, we were hitting up 6th Avenue to go to Gateway to India, and my wife was like, I can't believe that this was not a place that people would ever want, like to avoid. They'd have to avoid it. And I'm like, because it's beautiful now, but it wasn't. And that's that thing. It's like Tacoma's had that stigma, especially since the 70s and stuff. But now it's becoming an up-and-coming place for people to create stuff and people to do fun things. And you guys are at the forefront of it right here, really.
Well, we can only hope.
Is there anything else you guys want to bring up with this? How can people, if they want to create with Radio Tacoma, can they just contact you and give you a pitch? How do you go about with these sort of things?
Good question. One that has been much on my mind. For right now, people have been sending inquiries to info at Radio Tacoma, which is good, and that's been helpful. We're having a programming meeting on Tuesday evening, and one of the things that I really want to bring up is to have a program inquiry form that we can put on our website.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that people can go, they can fill out the form and just send it to us. And then we'll know, do they have a podcast all ready to go? What form is it in? Or do they have just an idea that they need help developing? Or, whatever input that they can give, we're ready for it.
So if they have a podcasting email, here's the links to our podcast. And you could probably do that via social media right now, too, to at least get the ball rolling, or just email with that as well. And all that information, the ways to contact is at radiotacoma.org, so people can just do that very easily. But yeah, it would just be fun just to get more of that. Like I said, like it's the new public access, or another way of public access, because you can still do that all over the place. But it's another venue you can get people into Tacoma. That's the thing that I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
It's just that, I mean, you guys are already inspiring a bunch of people with the interview event that you had as well. Do you have any more of those coming up in the future, or is it just like the Audacity training? How does that all go about with that?
I love the look they just gave each other. Did you see that?
Do you have it?
Just went, oh, should we say something now, or
Well,
should
it
we
might
wait?
be premature.
Oh, okay.
So
But
watch your stuff.
Yeah. So, all of this may be moot.
That's understandable.
But I've been in contact with Clover Park, and
Oh,
we're
nice.
trying to get like a continuing education journalism, radio journalism course.
Ooh, I would take that. I need
Yeah,
one.
yeah. That would
Interesting.
include a lot of these things, not just the Audacity editing, and interviewing, but what's required by the FCC, what are you prohibited from with the FCC? Journalism, there's a class in Bothell on radio journalism that I'm kind of modeling this after.
Okay, yeah.
And I audited that course and got a lot of materials and know the instructor. So this is
It's another knowing a person to
Knowing
help you
a
get that.
person.
That's perfect.
so that's kind of my next goal. So I kind of need to nudge them on that. See if that's going to happen.
Well,
this
good luck
spring.
with that. Seriously, absolutely. That's fun that it's you're willing to pass on all of this fun information that you figured out. Is that where you decided, like, that was the beginning, that course, auditing that course, where you're like, I want to get into this radio thing, or was it just the fact that the FCC licenses had popped up?
Oh, you mean the course in Bothell?
Yeah.
Oh no, that came much later.
Oh, really? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
That's after. I'm trying to remember when I did that. I think it was after we were on the air.
Oh,
Last
okay.
fall. It was about a year ago. Yeah.
Oh,
And
neat.
I realized, oh dear, I need to know a lot more than I do right now.
I would like to mention too, there's also a development committee that I run,
Mm-hmm.
and we have meetings, and we'd love to have people join. So again, if someone's interested in the programming committee or the development committee, they can send an email to info@radiotacoma.org. But there was also a technical committee that really branches both of the radio stations, and we have developed Welcome Wednesdays. Twice a month.
Oh, okay.
In different locations, usually advertised on Facebook. But if someone's working on a piece, they can come to those Wednesdays and get help, technical help, or
Really?
other kinds of help for any sort of piece that they're trying to put together.
Wow. So you guys, you're just looking at all aspects at that point. So the creative, the
Yeah.
technical.
And the Welcome Wednesdays too are for any questions. Just come meet us. I mean, it's not just limited to technical help now.
So that'll be just really the best time to get a little face to face and maybe kind of at least show the first the seeds of an idea at that point.
They have been held at Elmer's Pancake House.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they get a separate room. A brewery somewhere downtown.
Yeah, Blackfleet Brewery on
Oh, yeah, that's the guy I'm trying to get on. I know.
Of course, the problem there, which they didn't figure out until actually that Wednesday, they thought that Blackfleet was open till 9, and they close at 8.
Whoops.
Yeah, well, so that may not be a venue, but they're going to try and move it around so that more people have access.
It's kind of like us with the Grit City podcast. We do a lot of podcasting here at Union Club, but we've done stuff at Malarkey's, and sometimes it's just whoever wants to host us, or sometimes in my garage because it's a tiny itty-bitty space.
Sometimes those are the most fun, though.
Yeah.
Can I mention, we just had our first live broadcast
Oh,
on
did you?
election night.
Oh, nice.
Oh, how did that go? So, what was it? The election results and such?
Well, it started at 5, and
Okay.
they kind of figured out all the bugs by 8.
Ah.
And when the results started
That's
coming
funny.
in. And it went very well. When I tuned in about 8, I'm done teaching about 7:30, so I got home about 8. And it sounded very good. And they were there with the Tacoma Creates.
Oh yeah, with Prop 1, which
did pass.
which I was very happy for. I did vote for that. I mean, we're not normally a political podcast. We don't really talk about that much, but this one was very important because this is helping create things and helping kids and students learn how to create and just be able to, and better their lives through creation. And this is giving them money for it.
Yes, supporting the arts, definitely. In fact, Sam, if you have Sam and Becky on, you should talk to Sam about his work with, what's the school down at Point Defiance?
Oh, Sammy?
Sammy, yeah.
Sam at Sammy.
Yes, and he has been teaching a course down there on radio for high school students.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you guys are farming your own little thing. In a couple of years, you guys are going to have all kinds of radio talent running out of
Yeah.
things. I can see it.
Then maybe I can retire.
That's her goal.
So, how long have you guys been in Tacoma proper? Have you grown up here?
Well, right now I am living in my aunt's house.
Mm-hmm.
In Furcrest.
In Furcrest, yeah.
But we grew up next to Channel 13 and the big green water tower.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We had a beautiful home there. Why do you say that?
Well, the outside was nice. The woods was nice. The house was a wreck.
She loved that house.
Oh my God.
Disregard her comment.
And I used when I couldn't sleep at night, I would make little pictures out of the peeling paint on the wall.
Well, you can see, I teach about this, about history and remembering different things, same thing differently. Anyway, so we grew up in Tacoma, but both of us have been, I lived in Buffalo, New York for 25 years, went to grad school back there, and then worked for several years in policing back there.
Oh, interesting.
My degree was in English, but I worked in policing.
But, okay, so now we're both living in Furcrest, but I do have to mention that we have great-grandparents buried in Tacoma.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we go back.
That's amazing. I just
Yeah.
love the fact that even going to Buffalo and you were able to come back. What was a big difference between Buffalo and Tacoma for you, or even similarities maybe?
I would say more similarities. I love Buffalo, New York. It's a small, I'd say this is true of Tacoma too. It's a big, small town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People knew each other. People had lived there for many years. There was a lot of arts going on. Even if the government wasn't functioning very well, a lot of the people in lower levels of government and or a lot of nonprofit organizations functioned very well. Buffalo has now the largest garden walk in the United States.
Really?
Yeah.
Fun.
It's a cool town.
I think things like that only happen on a community level. Like, you're never going to get a town that has a giant park or a garden or something beautiful like that unless the people do it. Like, no one's ever going to come in and do that. The state's never going to do anything like that. So that's awesome.
Yes. Buffalo was high end, and I think Tacoma also in what's called social capital.
Ooh,
People.
I like that term.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
And that's
Yeah, it was. That's what I meant. I was about to say that. I said it kind of as I was turning my head. Probably didn't get over the mind.
Well, Louisa, Pam, seriously, thank you so much for spending some time with us. One more chance. Anything else you want to get out there before we let you go?
Yeah, there's one thing.
Yes.
Because with the programming, we're inviting people to, give us content.
Mhm.
We want content. However, as a radio station, we are bound by FCC
Oh, that's a
rules.
really good
And
point.
I just attended a conference where there were lawyers, ask an attorney.
Yeah.
And I said, do we have to be responsible for every word that comes out of the radio? And he said yes.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I have devised is a little review sheet. So that what I'm looking for is people to listen to a podcast before it goes on air,
Mm-hmm.
and then fill out, like 5 questions, just marking 1 through 5, whether it's interesting,
Mm-hmm.
what the quality's like, are there any F words?
Oh, and that's a
Yeah.
big point because the Carlin 7 words you can't say still really hold true with that.
Well, yes and no. I mean, that's one of the things. I've got a PowerPoint that I give on a peak at obscenity,
Oh, okay.
which talks about that.
Sounds like a fun and tittillating conversation.
It's going to be part of the course.
I love it. So people definitely need to make sure that they know what they're getting into with this because obviously you guys don't want to get any FCC fines levied against you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But more importantly, we want people to review programs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Because
even
we're looking for interest and adherence to our mission and those kinds of things. too.
So if anyone's interested in reviewing, they can also contact us.
Perfect.
They
If you
can't
love
join.
listening to podcasts, Scott.
I do love listening to podcasts.
Yay.
And they can all find all that information at radiotacoma.org, the Facebook message and the Twitter as well. They can just social media. You got your social media manager helping siphon through all that stuff as well.
Yes.
Pam, Louisa, thank you guys so much.
Oh, thank you.
Sweet. You guys are awesome.
That was fun.